Um, I'm still standing after all this time, looking like a soul survivor. And I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, we're live. So, yeah, welcome to the OBG show, and I'm live again tonight. So, I'm doing that thing what people do. I've seen so many YouTube videos, and the guys are actually in love with their voice more than their content. So they've got these kind of deep voices, and a lot of them kind of fake it anyway. And then they turn the bass up on the mic channel, and then they kind of talk away like this. Hi, and welcome to the show. And then they do this fake voice, and it's really about the love of their voice and the show because they're talking about like a car, but it's just got a big them in the middle of the screen and like little square hair with the car in, and that guy's got like, half decent voice really. He could show the car more, but the show's about him. But this is a show about me, so I'm front and center anyway. I'm not knocking anyone. Let me just try and get my camera a little bit more focused. Okay, so tonight's a raw show. Just thought I'd come on. Sound excellent. Thanks a lot, Nick. It was a schoolboy error. It's something that I'd done 10 months ago with the sound, and I just set up a new system, had it working earlier because I'd done a test, but went in, clicked a setting, and it went off. Hello, Kenneth. Good to see you, mate. Okay, I think that's better focus. I can't focus on my screen from here, and it looks like I'm out of focus when I'm not. So I'm good, thanks, Kenneth. Like no complaints. I had my, like every 2 years or so, I think 2.5 years, I have a moment of, and it's not a build-up necessarily. It's just that I kind of decide to react to whatever's around me and push against it. And that happened a couple of weeks ago. And since then, I've been fine, better than before. It gives me a whole new 2 years kind of thing. But tonight, I'm here to have a go at the English. I don't mean like, you know me. I don't hate English people. I don't hate anybody. I don't like some people. And this isn't about a dislike of the English. But sometimes I point out certain traits about English people. No one likes to be told negative things about themselves anyway. But I think it's always worth taking heed so you can at least fight against it or take it on board, because this is how we grow and change. And it's not to group everybody. And I'm not talking about natural traits here. Like, you could easily say something's negative if I said, oh, all, white people are all black people or something, because white people come from different cultures and black people come from different cultures. But when I talk about the English, it's about the cultural thing, a cultural aspect. And because of that, even though everybody's not part of that cultural thing, there's a commonality around it. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Let me just try this. So I'll be talking about the English, and it's not about English per se, really. It's about arguing on Facebook, and then I'll lead into that, and I'll talk about one of my favourite philosophers very briefly before maybe getting into a chat with you guys. It's a late night show after all, and anything can happen. So before I do that, in fact, I'll just wait a bit in case Tom actually comes in. But I will say thank you to Tom again later on. So let me start off with this, really. I get into arguments on Facebook quite a lot. I'll talk about me once again because I can only talk about my experience, and everything else is assumptions and so on, which I make often, and I judge people. Fight me. So I get into debates on Facebook often, and often people are not skilled at debate. They just argue, and they do it because they can. It's like having an opinion. Well, that's my opinion. It's like, you haven't studied the subject. There's not much you can offer to this debate, really. You're just saying what you think, and you're allowed to do that, I understand, but it's not conducive to your argument. And it just means that we're going to end up shouting at each other. And same with opinions, people, well, it's my opinion. It's like, I get that, but it's got, it's very, very inexperienced in opinion. So I will say I'm not better than anyone else for doing so, but I've studied rhetoric and the art of debate and language and so on. And in doing so, it really does help. One, I go for logic first of all. There has to be logic to an argument. And, once we approach with that logic, then it can give us a good ground for debate. And we end up not shouting at each other. For the person who doesn't use it, often I think they've lost the argument straight away. And there is such thing as losing an argument. It's not about me having an argument to win a point. I often argue with people to learn something. So I could be wrong. Last night's show, I apologized to someone about something that I said or meant because I stop, pause, listen, try and take it on board. You have to take a breath and you have to come down from that, up there, go, no, shouting and try and get your point across. And you listen, you take it on board. And often then it kind of crosses over with what you were thinking, prior to that, and you can change your mind. It's quite easily done. So when people just come on and they have a point to make, and that's all they want to say, they don't even listen to us. And what they do then is they keep on trying to wait to just say their bit, because what they're trying to do there is to express their view alone. They want to be heard, but they're not actually debating. And that's very annoying. It's a very English trait for me. It's a human trait, don't get me wrong. But if I can just express my view on why. First of all, let me talk about Jaque Derrida. Now, Jaque Derrida, he's like a philosopher, French philosopher, and he was known for talking about deconstruction and about how the English, and this goes way back, so it's not just my view, and doesn't mean it's right because someone else said it, and because he's French as well. But we often look at other cultures, and with deconstruction, what he says, the Western mindset is very based on binary way of thinking. Love and hate, light and dark, right and wrong, black and white, and we're so hooked into it. And it's hard to think outside of that, being a Westerner, unless you've taken the time to reflect and to study, because you might say, well, what other choices are there? There's plenty of choice. If someone says you can have this or that, then really you haven't got a choice. And Jaque Derrida, he talks about this a lot in constructionism, and he says that comes from, or it's a form of hierarchy. And I believe that as well. And this is why I've got into these debates, and more so not giving time to people as much as I would have before anyway, because this hierarchy that's created comes from a superpower country, an imperialist state. And it doesn't matter whether it's imperialist or communist, or whatever. What I'm talking about is a superpower. And we were born under that. And being born under that, it shapes our worldview, and that's the arguments that we put forward with that mindset often. And I'm just fed up of hearing it. I keep talking about the active voice all the time. As soon as I put an opinion forward or a view that opposes the view of those who have been conditioned by the conquering nation, then they assume that I'm wrong or tell me that I'm wrong straight away. And I'm not taking it anymore. And I think in part, this is what's happening in the world right now, the change we're seeing. So I see a lot of people saying, oh, the world's in turmoil, And I'm like, the world's always been in turmoil. For 90% of the world, we are the privileged ones. So the fact that our lives have been interrupted now, suddenly everyone's calling it the world. No one said the world was in trouble before, and I don't mean no one, that's hyperbole to illustrate the point. What I mean is no one was saying, oh, the world's in turmoil, the world's a terrible place, what are we going to do to fix it? We just went around and we spent our money, and we went on Amazon, and we went on holidays, and we watched Netflix, and we bought other channels for £10 a month, and we lived our lives rich as we can, and we used all the resources that we can play. We're the children that play. It's like an anomaly, an abnormality, in fact, in that you've got this world, and it's no one. I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm saying it's time for change. We've got a world in which a small group of people went out and conquered everything, and they've taken, and they're still living off of that wealth, and we live under that and within that. So we've never taken the time, and it's not everybody, but in general terms, people haven't taken the time to look beyond that. We're just fat and we're well fed, and we're not looking at the rest of the world, and nobody's saying that the world's in turmoil. But now that we're seeing change and we're being affected, oh, the world's shit, the world's terrible. And it's like, part of me is going, ha, ha, ho, hum, because I've never lived in a lap of luxury. I have at times, I've moved into it, but I've maintained a certain status quo, which means that if the change comes, I can live with it. And that's about not having much, and not about owning too many things, and not having too much love for the material goods, but the love of people and the love of life. So Jaque Derrida, his kind of views were about deconstruction, were a critique in the main of English culture. And it met some opposition, of course. I won't go into that now, but he is a view that always sat in my head. And when I try to express that to people, even not in debate, that listen, you're speaking from a place of privilege, they find it hard to take on board. And they may say that I don't like English people, I'm anti-English, or they just don't want to accept that view. So it's time for change, and I'm glad for that. And that's all in relation to, let me just do this because I'll tell you what I'll be talking about in a future show. So I'll be talking about coronavirus in future, and they're coming together now, very close. The coronavirus, the Great Reset, our mindset, and so on. And I'll pull them together into a beautiful show because when I spoke about the Great Reset, like 6, 7 months ago, a lot of people hadn't even heard of it yet. So I like talking about things when people are more aware, even though I don't always do that, so that the it, the belief is stronger, so people know of it at least, and they know what I'm talking about. If I talked about the Great Reset and these people forming a committee and wanting to change the world, people would start thinking it's a conspiracy, and it's not. So now the Great Reset has come to people's attention, the coronavirus and why it's here in the position, and why we're kept indoors so we can't communicate with each other and meet out in a casual surroundings and plot. It's all about keeping us away from each other, about that human contact. But I'll get onto that on that show in the future. So we'll be talking more about Corona Shimona. But before I do that, I just want to say a big thank you to the man who gave the OBG show a lease of life just recently. All the donations and contributions that have come in, whether they've been in the form of PMs or just people watching the show, I'm grateful for. But in the main, big thank you to Tom McCarthy. Thank you so much, Tom, for the massive donation recently that's giving the OBG show a chance to breathe. And also, I want to take this moment to say a big thank you to the people who did send the donations in today and yesterday, so the OBG studio can get a new keyboard. I've been this one just broke over time. I've had it for 2.5 years. It's a quality keyboard. It's a noisy one that people talked about, and I've replaced it with the original keyboard I had, but I can't really work with it. And it seems trite to say, oh, it's a keyboard, it can't work, I need a new one. But that's a tool of my trade, and believe it or not, it's not just me sitting on a computer. So I need not a quality keyboard, but a better one than this. And the donations came in and allowed me to fund that. So I'd like to get that on Monday. Okay, so what else was I going to talk about tonight? What is in the show subject? The bloody English. I've done that. Anyone want to talk about that? Feel free to go ahead. And also, I want to talk about manipulation through words, because manipulation through words, that's quite important. Words are spells. I know it sounds like voodoo magic, but words are spells. And the reason I know this is because I'm a magician with words. I've used words all my life, and I've managed to I've created something. It's for sale if you want it. And I know everyone wants to know the magic, but the issue here is I'm having a go at people tonight. People read a little about stuff and think they know about it, when in fact all they know that it exists. They say, oh yeah, I know about that. And it's like, no, so you read about it, you know that it exists, but you've never actually gone in and studied it. And with words and their magic, it's something I've studied forever. And let me give you one for free. Okay, let me give you one for free. This is the art of persuasion or manipulation, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to use a small example here. And what I want you to do is replace the word drink with whatever you want, book, food, and so on. So if you wanted someone to take or have a drink, this is purely an example. You could use 3 forms. And take this on board. You can apply this to many other things, and I've got a whole truckload of tricks like this, okay? So you could start off with, do you want to drink? Now, if you ask someone, do you want to drink? That's a poor use of persuasion, because first of all, you're giving that person choice and you've handed control over to that person. And in doing so, they could make their own personal choice. And it seems like the obvious thing to do. As some people think, and they think, why are you even asking me? Of course I want to drink. And it causes a kind of little negativity there, and it's not the best way to persuade anyone to do it. And then you've got the second option, and you can say to someone, can I get you a drink? Now, can I get you a drink? It's got the polite form, and using the polite form, you're likely to have more success in do you want to drink? Okay. But the issue here is that you've also handed control over to the other person, and you've given them an option still. You know, you've said to them, like, can I get you a drink? And so the ball's in their court. Now you've got the third option, and this is the word magic. Now think about this long and hard, and it can apply to anything. If you say to someone, let me get you a drink, it's done, it's sealed, basically. Because what you've done now, the ball's in your court, boom, right? And it not only initiates action with you being in control, but it also tricks the person, if that's the right word, or it gives the person the feeling that they're empowering you. Let me. You're asking for their permission. And, you know, most people don't want to say no to things. They don't want to prepare to be mean. So let me get you a drink. And not only that, does it work with a very high success rate, but it also allows you to get that person any drink you want. Because you can say, let me get you a drink. And you can come back and go, here, try this. You see what I mean? So the power of words is important. And you can apply this to anything. It's not just about drink alone. It's about the power of words. And this is something that I've studied since a schoolboy, to be honest. And I'm very persuasive. I don't use it for magic. I do believe in the mantra that, you know, you have the power, use it for good. And I learned that in a comic as a child, to be honest. But I've learned words, so I can dissipate, you know, situations very quickly, physically as well, by touch, but also by word. And it also allows me to, for want of a better word or term, get my way. And words are very important, words are spells. And I say to everyone, learn about words. And this is part of the trivium, which I was talking about before in the liberal arts. And grammar is a very important aspect of it, regardless of how I sound to you, because some of us are locked into this idea of using big words, but that's just a different level of education. And I write that way, maybe, but I don't speak that way. And part of me has trained myself not to, because I found that I was communicating with people in my strata in life, and often, I mean, they had a nickname for me, Professor, and so on, because I was talking a bit, you know, like maybe higher level than they were, not to be a better person, but just to say that a different form of education. So, you know, words are magic, and we have to learn to use them wisely. So, on that note, I haven't got anything much more to say. If anyone does want to come in and ask me a question about anything, and I mean anything, I'll try my best to answer it, even if the answers I don't know. And if not, I'll move on. I'll give you 60 seconds starting from now. La la da 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 dee, la la da 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 da. I do like the raw shows because I can smirk tabs. In the week, of course, I'll be getting onto the juicy stuff, the stuff that you want to hear, the fear-mongering stuff. I don't try to scare people. It's just that I find if I do a show and I talk about the beauty of flowers, I'll get like 400 views. If I talk about the government being bad people, then 1,000 people come in, and it's like people want to see bad news. But what I've said is I'm not going to be a news channel. I'll impart some information and put my little twist on it, but I'm not going to be another news channel. For those who like scare porn, who want to see how shit things are and want to watch news, you know, you can watch that elsewhere, but I'm not going to be a news channel. So also for the people who are watching this show, like the post-show recording, stop sending me stuff in PM, which you think's good. You have a wall on Facebook, and that's where you can express your information. Tag me if you want to, and I've got a choice saying I can come or not. But to come into my private domain, into PM, and go, oh, you've got to check this out, or this one's different, or this one's better. Stop it. PM's for conversation, as far as I'm concerned. But to be sending me 50 videos a day, you know, it's just not cricket. So stay out of the PMs unless it's really, really important. And I know your level of really importance is different to what I think. You've got your own subjective reality on that one. It's like, oh, but this one is important. It's like, no, the only thing that's important for me in PM is conversation. If you want to talk to me, or even you want to talk about that post at length, then maybe we can get into discussion. But that's just stop sending me links to videos. It's not nice. Post them on your wall and I might see them, or tag me, and then I may, you know, go and see them. But no more PMs. Anyway, on that note, before I get into a hardcore gripe, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for coming in tonight. I just thought I'd go on and have a little chat. I can't stop talking on Saturday night. Oh, boy, I should have had a tune in. Anyway, let me just play this jingle just because I can. Yeah, just working on some new graphics with the help of Repanita. Thank you so much. Ree's amazing. She's doing a hell of work for me. I've got to stop saying hello. I was told by a viewer. So, yep, sorry about that, Michael. I will cut that out sometime soon. Hello, Adam. Adam, anything you want to say? Anything you want to talk about before I go? Any questions you want to ask? Fire away. And I'll see if I can handle that. And all that gangster stuff, to me, that's all negative bollocks, by the way. I will say it. Come on my show, get castigated. That's the way it works here. I'm doing this show, I'm trying to be positive. I point out some of the things I see. I'm not being negative about them per se. I'm talking about the negative aspects of them. And suddenly popping up and just writing gangster. And I've got to witness that. I don't even know what it truly means. I mean, maybe you're saying I'm gangster, it's gangster, things are gangster. But like you're 28 years old or whatever, I don't think you should be even talking like that. Yeah, I said it. He's like, what's that all about? Gangster. It's like, no, and the American spelling, that's for the American street kids. I think it should stay there, to be honest. It's a form of communication, I guess. But once again, it's about us in England picking up all these different cultural things, appropriating them, and then throwing them out at everyone else. And if you're calling me gangster, I certainly ain't. I'm no bad boy. I turn it on when I have to, and that's about it. If you wrote a nice guy, I'd accept it. Yeah, the difference between Spain and UK, between knife crime. Well, Spain, I don't really look at the news anyway, but historically, the Mediterranean countries have a reputation for using the knife as their weapon of choice. Like in England, we tend to want to use a bottle, like in a bar fight and so on. Fisticuffs as well. And the English ain't all clean. I'll pick stuff up to beat you with. But the knife crime in England, I talked about it in a previous show and I showed the figures. Knife crime's always been a thing in England. And I talked about the teddy boys who used to use like cutthroat razors and stuff. And the knife crime in the 50s was worse then than it is now. I think a lot of the thing about the knife crime in England is just race-based once again. It's because a few young black boys have committed knife crimes in London, and it's a haven that needs to be protected or wants to be protected. So the Daily Mail, which for some reason is the most popular, in my feed at least, newspaper on Facebook, and I don't read it, but it's because everyone else is reading it, it keeps on popping up. They just point on the negative aspects of knife crime because black kids are doing it. And I posted the figures for it a while back, and there was more knife crime going on in the Midlands and like in Scotland and so on. And people weren't talking about it. It was a black thing, that's all. But in Spain, it is a weapon of choice. But fortunately, in Spain, culturally, one-on-one crime against another is really frowned upon. So they get very tough sentences, and culturally, people don't allow it. Now, the mad lone knifeman's going to go out and still do what they do. But in the main, young boys don't carry knives, and even when fights break out, the Spanish are very into like tranquilo and stopping it. And if it does kick off, then they're into that uno y uno, and they only want one-on-one. They don't really jump in. So the knife thing over here, I think it has its ups and downs. I don't know for sure. I haven't looked at the figures recently, but the feeling I get, and I don't base things on feeling alone, or what I do know about one-on-one crime. It's not there, but I will have a look in for you, Adam, and I'll come back to you on that because I'm interested in knowing how knife crime is in Spain, because it typically affects the younger people, and in Spain I'm not truly in touch with a younger generation like I was in the UK. Crime in general, it goes on everywhere, but once again, it's like Spain. People are chilled out, man. They've got this outdoor life. They're in groups often. You see young groups of teenagers over here in Spain, and it's quite endearing, I must say. Anything from there are different groups, and I'm always watching people. So you see the kids who are allowed out on their own, and I find that always funny. Like, when you hit about 11, 12, 13 maybe, I don't know, 11, 12 maybe, when you go to secondary school. So now your parents don't just let you play locally where they can keep an eye on you. You go out and you start forming gangs, basically. And so what I do, I look over my balcony sometimes and I say, well, there's a little group of kids. I think there must be about, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years old. And they're still like kids. They think they're adult, growing up, and they're, like hanging out. And they're always going in the sweet shop and they're, eating sweets still, like kids do. But they're not noisy. They're not spitting. They're not doing the crazy shit like I see a lot of English kids doing. And then you've got the next group up, and they're like the 16 to 21-year-olds. And they're the boys and girls, and have discovered their kind of sexuality, and they say, they're matured, and the boys think they've got muscles and tough, and the girls are kind of looking fine, and so on. And I watch them, and they sit on the benches. Some of them smoke marijuana. A hell of a lot of them do. You smell marijuana when you walk past them a lot. But there's just no violence. If I walk past them, or an elderly person, you know, if they catch your eye, buenos dias, and they'll say good evening, good morning, good afternoon to you, and it's really nice feeling. Now, I'm not in a tough area, so I've walked through some of the tougher areas, and I've seen it's a bit different. You know, the guys are a bit more active, maybe ready for trouble and so on. But even still, they're quite mellow. If you look at them, make eye contact, they'll give you a little hello, a little nod, and so on. So you see those younger people, well, I'm talking about maybe from 12 to 25-year-olds now, and they have a certain passivity over here. And maybe it's the marijuana. In fact, I always say it must be the marijuana. And, you know, they're not just sat out in gangs causing trouble. They're typically sat in groups because they hang around in the same groups from school, a lot of them in Spain. And they... you know, they chill out basically. But crime's everywhere. I don't really know the figures. Right, let's have a look. Black people in the media. Black people's. I can go on at length at this. I won't today, but Adam, send me a message and I'll do a whole show about it. The issue there with black is it's about white superiority, and that's what racism is. Now, a lot of white people are not willing to learn or accept their position. The same way I talked about the English. People all over the world, you know, it's a human thing, you know, where we don't sit down and we don't really want to see who we are and what we're about and how we affect other people. But the privilege and the advantage that white people have, and it's a white thing, is that they're Europeans in the main, and they're the people that conquered everything. And it's most recent, you know, it's happened historically, but that's the most recent one. So that's the one we're still living under. And what they did, they went and they destroyed Africa. Now, the size of Africa is phenomenal. It's just, it's breathtakingly big. I flew over it and I was like, I felt sad, mind you, some DNA connection or something. And what they did, a lot of Europeans, whether they be scholars, men of science, you know, archaeologists and so on, they created the story of Africa. Everything we hear of Africa comes from a white European perspective. Nearly everything we hear. It's not from African people, it's about African people. And they've hidden all of the destruction. And in doing so, people like Darwin and you know, Freud, people who people respect, you know, men of letters and so on, European ideal, they said that Africans are inferior. I'm going to leave that. You know, they said that Africans are inferior for a million reasons, scientifically even. And because of that, Africans have always been looked on as secondary. And they've written tomes, I'm talking about scholars, people even I respected, you know, like European philosophers and so on, saying that the black man is an animal. And the black man is a beast and they shouldn't have the same rights as white people. And people don't understand that this went on and this is what we're living under. That's kind of filtered down through society. So the black man's always looked on not only as being inferior, but more so as a threat. Once people realize black people are just like us. We are the same. We are all humans. And there's a certain fear about our power. It's in the psyche about how strong we are, how big our penises are, how fast we learn. Because when you think about a nation of people, me included, that come from people who were slaves 400 years ago, were still being lynched 60 years ago, and even in modern day times, I've done a few lynchings. I'm a computer programmer that works in a bank in London 7 years ago. And that's a fucking long way to come, you know? Not coming from an established group of people culturally in this country. It's an amazing leap. And people are afraid of that. And it looks like we've got superpowers to them because of it. And in order to maintain their position with their fear, they keep on propagating the lies about the black man. It's just the way that it's working. Now, I think the newer generation are being a little bit more open, but they're still not doing enough. I've got lots of friends who say things like, oh, well, you know, and they've confessed, some of them, but many of them haven't, but I know it's true. Their parents are racist. So some of that's passed on to them. And they won't try and educate their parents. Some of them tell them they don't like it, maybe, but that's it. But it's been passed on to them, and they're not learning enough about race and so on. And when I mention their privilege and the knowledge that they learn, which is so Eurocentric and so on, they don't want to hear it anyway. So they're going to grow up with the same mindset, which means we've got another 2 generations at least to go, 3 generations even, before people start seeing true equality. And this is maybe in part why the Great Reset isn't really bothering me that much. I'm like, yeah, loss of liberty, so what? All they're doing is making a level playing field, and the Euro panic's strong. Europe's where the voice is, and people that don't want to hear that we're going to have to be giving away some of our wealth, and the other countries are coming up. So it's about the destruction of the black man, and they've tried historically by injecting Africans, by putting diseases over there, by just spreading the word, by sending some dodgy Bible over there, and giving black people a white God and a white Jesus. Do you know what I mean? And it's just an ongoing onslaught. But we've always stood up strong, and we can't be defeated. So they're going to try and do it in the media, and it works on some levels because a lot of people believe it. But they're fighting a losing battle, and we're here to stay, basically. There are superpowers. I think you was there when I done the show about superpowers. We've all got superpowers. They even have, so-called negative traits of superpowers. Yeah, it's a shame it takes so many generations, but, things are passed down. And the reason for that, I'll do this very briefly, I've talked about this before, is that we've only got 100 years to make change. If you imagine from today, in 100 years, nearly everybody alive now is going to be dead. Everybody's going to be new in 100 years. There's 7.1 billion people, say, whatever the number is, close to that. And in 100 years, every single person alive now nearly is going to be dead. There may be a couple of thousand alive, who've lived to over 100 or, 10,000, however many. So within that window, if we don't start working together and communicating and trying to build, then all our ideas die. Working class history doesn't get passed on. We're still the subject of the ruling class and the middle class. They point to, there was this old woman, fat, English women used to sing on the market. Her name was Katie of Lambeth, and that's all we get to know. There's nothing else. And then for everyone who led a revolution, the working class have to keep on pushing that idea, because the people at the top don't want the working class within the 100 years to get new ideas. So our ideas don't live on. All that lives on is that who was the king in 1517, King John or something, and that's lived on. But you don't know the name of the butcher, the baker, or the candlestick maker, or the working class people who worked on the farms and built the land in those days. And it's because we've got that 100-year window. It's a very small window. And within that 100 years, we're indoctrinated with a stupid education. We're forced into an education system, some legal education, which they've started fining people, or they'll take your children away, which they own if you don't send them to school. And then you're sent to work at 16, or they've told you can have further education. All that means is really learn about the system now, but at a higher level, and we'll give you more money. You go and take a job, and then you become part of the system. So now by the time you're 20, you know nothing unless you self-educate. And that's 20 years of your life gone. And now you've entered work, and then you start getting in debt. And not only the debt that's pushed on you, like you have to pay for every single thing, but the debt we create because we're sold everything by the corporations as consumers. So now we create debt. Now our whole life, it's just about going to work so we can earn the paper to pay for those things, and we live those lives until we die. And that, within that 100 years, you die by the time you're 70 years old or 80 years old. And you've already worked for 45 of those years, or 50 after leaving school, and you've got no time to learn about new things and no time to make change. And this is why I want to keep on pushing this idea about the OBG show and getting that message across, so that part of us can live in the system. When I'm dead, maybe someone's going to say, yeah, check out this old video of this guy from 2021 or something like that, and some new rebels going to emerge because they like the ideas. So it's a tough battle, a tough challenge, but it's one we're fighting for. And that, in short, is why it takes so long to make the change in so many generations, because a little bit's passed on each time, and then we have these peaks and troughs, and sometimes a great idea gets passed on and it creates a certain groundswell. So yeah, it is about community, and the communities are all divided now. They've got communities in the smaller towns, and you see them once again, as I said, outside of the bigger cities. But people don't have no fucking willpower, no will to want to make change, because they have happier lives, I think. They're more content. They've got their local jobs. Some of them travel. They have a community, in small towns, little hamlets and so on. They have the summer fair and the spring fair, and they have little festivals and so on, and people know each other, and they have okay lives, and they don't want to rock the boat. And why would they? but they're affected on a higher level in that they're just kept in place. And if we don't expand our minds, then we can't contribute to what I see as a conscious arising or awakening, because we're not sharing our ideas and thoughts. We're shut down and we're sat there watching like the Kardashians on television or whatever films Hollywood throw at us with their hidden messages and so on. Whereas the people at the top, they meet up at these meetings that we know about, the Bilderberg Group and, you know, like these other economic forums that they do. And they sit there and say, you know, what are we going to do next? How are we going to shape the world? And now we're listening to the technocrats, the rich billionaires like Mike Zuckerberg. Oh, this is my idea for the world. Fuck off, Zuckerberg. We don't want to hear what you have to say. You're a mad boy who works with computers, who doesn't like women. And yeah, I said it. And we have to hear what they want and how the future is going to be. And Elon Musk, this is what the future is going to be like. We don't want your future. We want our future. And that's what we're fighting for. And that's why you should send people over to the OBG. Because not only do I complain, but I put forward solutions. I put forward suggestions for what we can do. And I hope it creates groundswell. And while we're on that, oh man, I killed it last night. I took it off. In fact, I may have it. Let's have a look. Can't pay, won't pay, don't pay. I created a template letter, which I put in the OBG show group, that you can write to your creditors and the people you pay bills to tell them that you're going to be very late paying your bills because the world shut down, you couldn't work, and how are you supposed to find money? And because of the knock-on effect, it's not a 3-month delay or a 6 months, it's going to be a 12, 18-month delay, and you paying those bloody bills, or you're going to pay them in parts. But look for the template letter on the OBG show group, and if you want to say that you're paying late, it will help you. If you don't want to pay at all also, and we start a movement and say we're not paying for those 6 months, we're in lockdown, sorry, then I hope that get some traction as well. Right. Back home, people literally survive because of community, not here in the UK. Well, no, Adam, see, we're in the cities and sometimes we don't see it. But yeah, in the UK is a fucking fantastic country. I mean, it's a great country for its own reasons. The idea of country comes from the people at the top, once again. And then they tell us below, like, you know, support the flag and our ideas. But the people, we're fickle, we're just people. We do what people do. We just get on. We just want a simple life, you know? And if you've got someone in your village, your town, who's a bit of a, you know, like get up and go personal leader, say, look, let's have this festival, let's do this, let's meet. And everyone else takes part, because people sometimes need, you know, pushing. Sometimes the magic just happens. But in the main, there's few leaders and more followers. It's just the way it is. But the people at the top of us have taken control in the leading, and they think we're following them, whereas we've got no choice. They make statutes every single day and new rules that if we break them, then they're going to take away our liberties or fine us and do rubbish. So, you know, it's very, very simple. It's not as complex as it sounds, system that we live within. But we just have to remove maybe just one or two things. Stop consuming. Stop watching the news, switch your televisions off, start communicating with each other, and everything changes. It really is that simple. Imagine not having any television, no internet, and you having to talk to everyone in your town. What are you going to do? Someone's going to think of an idea. Someone's going to think of a form of, you know, entertainment. Someone's going to say, well, I'll tell you what, on the weekends, if anyone can act, let's, you know, and then the carpenters build a stage, and, you know, the seamstresses make curtains, and they make a beautiful stage in the centre of the town, and tell the government to fuck off about the planning permission. This is what we want. We are the people. And what can they say? And all the other towns take heed, and every Friday you go out, even, you know, every evening, and people put on a play or a show, or musicians come out and perform, and we do stuff. You know, that's what would happen. It's that simple. But instead, we're fed from the poisoned minds of very few people. Hollywood. And anyone else wants to get their message across to keep us in check. And they've got something for everyone. And because they're forming our mindsets, there's only a very small group of things they have to do. They say, let's cater for like 12 types of people. And when, in fact, I read a book about the 7 types of people. And I don't like putting numbers on stuff, but it's amazing. I couldn't even think of an 8th. But, you know, this... that changes when people form new groups out of that 7 and so on anyway. And, you know, numbers are quite high. But in the main, because of the early doctrination that we've had, we form our ideas into, you know, this, that, and the other. And it's very small groups. And they just entertain us in that way. Right, let's put some cop drama films out in Hollywood, a couple of vampire films, get the young ones into the dark and the occult. Let's put some, you know, like magic films, Harry Potter, get the very young ones into the occult. And Fast and Furious. Let's get those, hot-blooded teenagers into, objectifying women and fast cars and so on. And that's all they have to do. But if we switched all that off, we'd be lost for a moment, and then suddenly there'd be clarity. And that's what I've done for the longest time. And once again, it's not about being a better person, because some people think, well, you think you're better than everyone else. I don't. Not totally anyway, but what I mean is I'm thinking differently, like, some other people are, and I get them with those people immediately. I'm not talking about the truthers who are screaming out what they know. Those people are more than trying to tell everyone the truth. They're trying to show off how much they know. I was saying this 6 years ago. Everyone's a sheep. Everyone's it's got to get woke. And it's like, why don't you go and tell them? Why don't you put some more effort into explaining and making solutions rather than just telling everyone how stupid they are? You're one of them. The whole system that was created around telling people there's a truth, that's what you've fallen victim to. There is no truth. So you chasing something that happened 50, 60 years ago, 20 years ago, you're living in the past like they want you to, rather than living in the now. Anyway, I've said enough for tonight. Adam, thank you so much for your questions and coming in. Hello, Becky, didn't see you coming. Oh, let me stay. Grow your own food. Now, Becky, whenever you come in, post a link if you want to. Crops, not shops. I forgot to talk about them. It's a movement that was started, Shay Godfrey and friends, and Becky's part of it now. And I always call you by your full name, Becky Morley Sutcliffe, in front of people. She's part of it now. She's a gardener extraordinaire, not just fixing gardens. She knows about crops, like gardening, Latin names for plants, and landscaping and all that stuff. She's got a skill. And what they do is they've got some land, they've got a massive greenhouse, with a plastic covering. They got crowdfunded for a van, volunteers, experts in their field, and they grow crops and they give them away for free to people. And they've got a lot of people who've joined their movement and who help as volunteers. And they also go to people who, maybe thought they couldn't grow crops at home, but they do raised beds. And there's another one, Becky, that you mentioned, about growing crops, not the raised beds. There's another one which you showed me. I forget the name of it. You've got stuff growing up against a wall or on the trellis or something like that. But and that's how we take power back as well, by growing our own food. Now, for you meat eaters who go, no, but there's no meat. It's like, it doesn't matter. If we grew our own vegetables, what a turn in the economy that would be. And once you start eating a lot more vegetables, you realise you can survive on them. And I'm not talking about going vegan or anything like that. But what I mean is, you'll eat less meat anyway. You'll find something within those vegetables which has a kind of texture and the feeling of meat somehow. And, it can be a thing. So, yeah, thanks for that, Becky. And crops not shops. Do take a look. Just even out of interest, if you're not moving towards it, rather than looking at another bloody fighting video on the internet or a video of some Arnold Schwarzenegger or someone famous. Oh, I just sold him there, haven't I? And those people are humans like us, and they need the love. I get that, but they decided to take a life of adoration, of us looking up to them, and they have a lot of PR people, and they create lies around themselves, and then they take money for things they don't truly believe in by endorsing products and then endorsing ideas of the people at the top. A politician might say, Arnie, you've got 25 million people worldwide who listens to you. Speak about this, boom, and then they bankroll them again. And these people have no respect for themselves, first and foremost, in the main. And you could argue that I'm being a bit of a wanker by saying that, but I'll be that wanker who's going to say that. And those people become so hooked on the drug of adoration, a lot of them lose sight. The people who don't get to that level are often the people that count. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Will Smith, whatever, they don't talk about, growing crops. They don't talk about a change of government, and they won't, because it just means that they can't afford their lavish lifestyles. They're going to cut off their money supply if they do. And you think you'd get to a point in life where you've earned enough money that you'd say, right, I still want to be in the public eye, but let me move in this direction. People like, oh Christ, what's her name? The very beautiful actress. She's Polish, actually. Oh man, I've forgotten her name. From the 1960s, 70s, 80s. She was known for taking her clothes off as well. I fell in love with her as a teenager, maybe for that reason. Helen Mirren. She's amazing. And, her and others, they're famous, they're wealthy, but they still take on causes. and they have no fear of losing their careers over it. They may have to tread cautiously, or did have to at some point, but they're using their position to make change. And when we look at people and say, oh, you just don't like Will Smith, man, you got to like him, he's a brother. It's like, I don't like someone because of their melanated skin. I like someone because of their actions. Or you've got to like Arnold Schwarzenegger. What about that film? I get it. I enjoyed his films, but he's in a position now to make change, and he hasn't, and he won't. So I really don't have too much respect for them. Anyway, let's see. We want to create a free food network, all organic, heirloom varieties, no GMO stuff. Absolutely fantastic, Becky. When I heard you join the project, I was so proud. I mean, like, in a sense of, you're Wonder Woman anyway to me, but it was like, oh my God, I didn't think it could get any higher. Do you know what I mean? And he's like, she's part of Crops Not Shops now, which is fantastic. So, I think I've said enough tonight. Jesus Christ, I'll never burn out. I'll never, ever, ever, ever. Let me just go on the play cam. Anyway, listen, the OBG show runs entirely on donations, and I do deliver. Tonight's a raw show if you're new here. I've been doing this for 1.5 years. For everyone who said they're going to do a show, you can't. I said it. I'm straight about that. You can talk for an hour, you can talk for 2 hours, and you've got nothing to say. I've done over 200 shows now in 1.5 years, and I'm keeping it fresh still. But in order for that to continue, I need donations. I need your support. Becky Morley-Sutcliffe, thank you for your continuous standing order as well. I'm going to marry that woman. I'm going to build a time machine and go back in time to when I was young. I'll just make myself younger. And, it requires the donations. So I'm not going to put up a donations page. I don't have one on this new setup. Today was really about showing the setup. And I'm going to say this again. To Tom McCarthy, because I did hit a really tough spot, and even though some donations were coming in, water. So thanks very much, Tom McCarthy. Big love to you. Big love to everyone who has donated. If you're thinking of donating, do it. If you haven't got the money, ask your parents if you're young. Ask your kids if you're old. Ask someone, but do send a donation, because that's what the show's built on. And the real shows, the half-hour shows with all the mirth and the magic and the good stuff, and the 3 or 4 shows. I've done 10 shows in 13 days, by the way. That has to continue, and I can only do that with your donations. So please donate to the OBG show. You'll find the details. Go to any show, and I'll post it at the end of this show as well, where you can send donations to paypal.me/OBG show, and also my OBG show bank account details. So let's see what Becky's saying, and then I'm done. Basically, we can guide, advise, and educate. So you can read that anyway. Well done, Becky, for taking it on board anyway. And I was meant to interview Che a couple of weeks ago, but it didn't work out. But we've had a talk recently. He's coming back on the show because I covered Crops Not Shops in a very early show, because it's one of the projects where my heart is. I love what they're doing. But he's going to come on the show, and we'll hear it from the horse's mouth. We could even set up a Zoom, for instance, Becky, if you did want to come on with him or someone else. And, I'll just ask you some questions so the rest of the viewers can see what you're up to. And on that note, oh my God, here comes Ray Philogene, man. I don't want to go now. Ray, I've got to go. I've been on for 50 minutes now, and plus all the setting up today and stuff, and we're an hour ahead of you. It's 2:00 over here. But Ray, also thanks for your donations and your standing order. That once again was like Becky's one of the key things that kept the show running, and it's not an exaggeration. There were times when I never feel like giving up, truly. I mean, I think about it, I'm like, man, you know what I mean? I've got to do something else. And then suddenly it's that time in a month, and dum, and I'm like, no, okay, this will see me through for this week. Do you know what I mean? And then suddenly I can carry on. So thank you so much, Ray, and for your confidence and your trust in me. The PMs, the beautiful positive messages that you send me, because it's not only about the money, everybody. It's also about the love that you show me and the positivity that you send. I do need a hard critic. I need someone to tell me, because I understand what it's like when you're famous. And I'm not saying I am. I'm talking about something on the side whereby, you get yes people around you. And I love you guys, and I know you love me too. But no one's given me the hard stuff. Like, yeah, Cedric, stop doing that. Stop doing that. Shave the beard off, man. And I don't want to hear about shaving the beard off, truly. But if you really, really think, okay, I should, then tell me why. I may not agree with you, but I need some hard stuff. I need someone to tell me some stuff that they don't like about it, the show, me, whatever. Just some hard talk. And to help me move forwards. Because I've done everything and I love it, but at the same time, sometimes it can get tiring. I just want someone to whisper in my ear. You go on too much sometimes, or you talk about this too much, you keep repeating this, blum blum, anything, and I will take it on board. Even though it'll hurt, I'll take it on board. Anyway, on that note.
So baby, I will be listening to OBG.
I love you. You're amazing. And I am the OBG.